Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing so I can hold a little prayer. Lord, grant to our community's leaders the courage to use and show their power wisely. God has called us all to perform our duties, no matter how humble or extraordinary they may seem to others, in a righteous and ethical manner. May our elected officials represent the community's people by making just laws, setting up and using the community's funds with prudence and respect. Let us all be responsible citizens by using our freedom to vote in a wise and educated manner. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Sir, did you sign it? Okay, you're letting sign it, please. Okay. Okay, does it work?
Testing, testing.
Okay. We have different guests this evening. We've invited, of course, like I told you earlier, the Avenida San Bernardo business community, the Laredo Development Foundation, for those that didn't make the other meeting, the Our Laredo group, and the Right to Speak group. And you all are very welcome. And this meeting is to be informed of the pending issues that are coming before us. Okay, the objectives of this meeting, of course, is always to educate the community with regard with what is coming up, okay? Is there any old business that we need to discuss? Vish? No? Okay.
Other than me being old, but, no, I think you've got it covered under the new issues.
Okay.
Updates.
Okay. Well, this afternoon at lunchtime, the Mercy Ad Hoc Committee met at the Environmental Center, and Vish and I attended that meeting, but I'm going to let Vish give you an update of that meeting.
Okay, bottom line is they are going to do a mid-report to the City Council on 16th of this month, which is 2 weeks from now, pretty much, okay? I believe the LHA deal fell through. Do you know that, or can you confirm that? Okay, so what's going to happen is there was a proposal that the LHA will come up with some kind of a plan for the old Mercy Hospital. That deal apparently fell through, or because the reason it fell through, in my opinion, is because the Karango group doesn't want to sign the fine print that was written there, whatever that fine print meant. So it didn't go through. So what it means is it's back to square one. The city was going to spend $25,000 on a study, and that's not going to happen, correct?
Correct.
And in between, let me tell you some things happened there. I can talk about it for as long as you want, but I don't want to. Indo Karango apparently spent $5,000 on fines. Already he paid. He's being fined every week. At this time, he has about 60 to 70 still pending fines that he may have to pay. So finally, I should say, I'm saying it finally, the city is giving them tickets and they are paying a little bit up. He continues to say that he has no monies and he has been given some deadlines. And on October 16, the group that's meeting, that ad hoc committee, is going to make a proposal to the city council saying they are giving some firm deadlines, do this by such and such date type of date. And then it's up to the city council to decide what they want to do. So the bottom line is back to the city council on 16th. The deal with the LHA has fallen through. It's not going to happen. And that's where we are.
What are the options? Are they going to take any options? They're an ad hoc committee. Are they going to tell the council, you should consider this or that, or they're a committee?
They are a committee. I think the way I understood it was They are going to present all the cases that they study. That's all they are going to do. They are not going to say, do this or do that.
No recommendation.
They are going to give them options, the way I understood it. The
Yep.
options are going to be,
You said deadlines.
no, this is an interim report, let me put it that way.
Okay.
It's going to call, they are going to say, by such and such dates, Cheto Karango, the owner has to put fences or
Board up the
board up the
windows.
windows, do this, do that, things like that.
Okay.
They're not telling them in this report, you have to demolish it or buy it, none of those. That's the way I understood it, right?
And it's an advisory board.
It's an advisory board, but they are not going to say on October 16, buy this for X number of dollars, or do not buy it. They're not saying anything like that.
Didn't the committee recommend it again to March 31st of next year to come in compliance?
That will be the
Is that
proposal on
one
the
of the
16th.
options?
Yes. By March 31st of next year, they are basically telling them, you have to shape up, and that is the final deadline. That will be the recommendation on 16th, correct. They still stand by that date. Yes. And if you remember, the city council also said a motion was passed to file a lawsuit against Karangos. I don't know how many of you know that. You were there at that meeting. Apparently, according to Colasio, nothing has really happened there, and I think they are working on it. That's the way I understood it. So, no action taken. Anything else you want to add?
So October 16th, at the city council meeting, they will be there to give the council an interim report. But they also said that they were going to set deadlines and all these other things to come into compliance. So they will explore, there's probably, what, 2 options,
And the
Vish?
council can either adopt those or vote them down.
The council can, it's
We
up
have
to the
seen that
council.
several times. They don't, they say, "Whoop," back
Okay.
in the trash.
Okay.
Any other questions on that, or keep going?
Well, do you want to tell them about the proposed judges? Okay, we want to discuss, there's going to be the November election. This November, although there are no names on the ballot, there will be propositions and there will be a bond issue. And it'll be a $125 million bond that the sheriff is proposing for a jail. So for how many
There was
beds?
a guy here, I'm sorry, one
Shut
here, he's supposed to be here, making a presentation, he's not here right now. There's definitely a group who is in favor of the jail, and there's also a group which is against the jail. So that's going to be the only thing that's going to be that matters to the Webb County residents, other than any other proposals that might be there. So we are going to have a different presentation for that.
Okay. The only comment I was going to make is Juan is not here, and I understand he was the one that was going to say something. You might want to take just a couple of minutes and ask if the audience has any comment they might want to say since it's on the agenda.
Anybody else?
Does anyone want to say?
Thank you, Mr. Carlo.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I do have a comment to make on the Proposition
And you are, sir?
Proposition 8. Jesus Dominguez, and I belong to the group with Juan, and it's called the Coalition to Lower Taxes. Okay? And basically what it is, what we were looking at and what we're seeing is, there's a proposition on the ballot right now that they want to do a bond where they're going to create a jail facility with some type of operational for the sheriff's office. But they're not going to ask the commissioner's court for any monies at this time, but they're going to be able to levy taxes in order to pay for the bond. And what they're saying and what they're telling everybody, what the people from the sheriff's office is basically telling you is, it's going to cost certain amount per month in order for us to have a new jail. So, and they tell everybody if it's $100,000, for every $100,000, it's only going to go up $4, $6 a month. And if you do it for 12 months, it's only going to be $72
72.
for a year. But what they're not telling you, and what they're supposed to be telling you is, the jails do not generate revenue. It's not a bridge like we have at the city. It's basically like you see in the proposition where you have your chart from the city, where public utility, you see the law enforcement and the fire department, which takes 63% of the budget from the city. The sheriff's office, there's a budget of close to $90 million, and the budget for the sheriff's office alone and the operation of the jail right now is a little bit close to $14 million. So it takes a big chunk of what the county makes or is able to get. And what they get it from is taxes. There's nothing that generates revenue for the county. Nothing whatsoever. It's not like the city, where the city can generate revenues with different projects and abatements and so on and so forth, that the city would be, or more community block grants. Like Mr. Salayo would be able to tell you a little bit more how many grants the city gets in order for it to supplement housing and supplement a lot of the things, so it won't cost the taxpayer as much. But the commissioners don't want to raise our taxes. They keep our tax rate to the minimal, and right now they'll tell you, and believe me, next year and the following year they're going to be telling you, McAllen is charging already 75% or 0.75% per each dollar on their tax rate. We're the lowest. We're charging half of what everybody charges. So we need to be up to par with them and taxes. So at the end of the day, what are we paying so much taxes for? Okay, they wanted to raise they didn't want to raise our taxes this year, so they ended up raising the bridge fees. And the bridge fees, as you saw, the beginning of the budget, I think it was a message from God and said, you know what, we're going to close the Monterrey Highway for a whole week. They didn't generate any money. You're going to see the ones for October coming in September, and those monies are going to be low. What are we going to do next? So now they're saying, well, going into the maintenance fees, and that's, I think, the whole thing about covering and masking taxes. So they're saying we're going to do a bond, but the way we're going to be paying back the bond will be by levying the tax. They don't tell you how much it's going to cost to operate. It's $125 million. Brandon Woods, and I think Mr. Hernandez has more of the studies and more of what he was going to talk about. I was just going to come in as an observer and basically fill in a couple of questions that he wouldn't be able to answer. But in what he did and what he researched, Brandon Wood, which is the commissioner and director of the Texas Standard and Jail Commissions, they did a feasibility study on Webb County in 2015. We're in 2017 right now. They came back and said, Webb County is going to need 1,000-bed jail 20 years from now. That was in 2035. We're in 2017. He wants, the sheriff's proposing $125 million. The bed capacity at this time is 572. He wants to increase it to 720. He basically is asking you almost for $1 million for each bed that he wants to create. Now, believe me, I think $1 million is better spent somewhere else and not a jail, for one thing. And we're not even talking about the taxes or anything like that. But what they're asking for is not needed. We don't need a new jail. We don't need higher taxes. Believe me. And we are going to be coming out with a big program next week. And I hope you all join us and support us. And please, please vote against the proposition. That's my comment.
capacity that the jail standards give Webb County? Is it 100% or are they only 80% of that 572?
It's 572, but they need to lower it just in case there's some type of emergency. So every jail works at an 85% to 90% capacity at this time. But we're seeing with the programs that was created and what we were seeing, there's people in jail that should not be in jail right now. There's alternatives to jailing. Mr. Hernandez would have talked about it. There's electronic monitoring, which costs the county a lot less money to operate and create some type of jobs also, and to private business in order to be funded. There's PR bonds. There's no offenders that should not be in jail on a Class B. And right now we have offenders staying in jail for 60, 70 days just to keep the numbers up. And that's ridiculous. Yes?
No, I have a comment.
Oh, next to you.
When Mr. Hernandez was here speaking to us, he said we would be paying for the jail for 50 years. That's a long time to saddle and bridle your family, paying for a jail. 50 years? It's a long time.
That's correct. And then that's only for the jail. We still need the operation of the cost of the jail.
Exactly.
Number one.
Exactly. We met with the sheriff and his right-hand man, I forgot the name of the gentleman,
Fred Garza.
and they made a presentation to us here at the bank, and we had a lot of questions. And we said, well, what's the operating cost? Well, we don't have those numbers yet.
You gotta have the numbers. You gotta have the numbers.
That's what they said. We'll get those to you. It's been 2 weeks. We haven't gotten anything. And we tried to refocus their, their argument was, well, there's these, I don't know, some ridiculous number of warrants that haven't been served because we don't have any place to put them. So we can't serve those warrants because we don't have the room to put them. I said, really? And just on and on. What about the land? Where is it going to be located? Well, we're working on that. In other words, there's a lot of things pending. No, all the T's aren't crossed, all the I's aren't dotted. When you put a business plan together, you got to have everything lined up. And they didn't. So we try to focus their attention on, look, you know what? Why don't you guys focus on cleaning up the river, and make this a safer area for you, for the Border Patrol, for everybody. And he kept going back to this. And I mean, just literally, we just didn't buy any of the ideas that they presented. It was half-baked. Half-baked.
And let me tell you, there's a flyer that we have, and they're saying, and the flyer, and Mr. Hernandez will tell you, all those things would be false. They said that back in 1986, when this jail was created, that Webb County only had 90,000 people. That's not true. No. That's not true. There was more people than that in Webb County at the time the jail was created. Right now, I think when the new census come out, I think we're going to be classified as a metroplex now, because we're going to be over 300,000 people here in this area now, with Rio Bravo, Cenizo, and all the little cities that are in Webb County. So we're going to be a metroplex. So the funding is going to be very different. We're going to get more. We're supposed to be getting more funding from the state and more funding from the federal government in order for us to help with housing, with schools, where the taxes should be going. Not in jails and spending in jail when we don't need a jail, when they're saying we're going to need 1,000-bed jail 20 years from now. So what are we going to do? Create another jail in the next year, in the following year, and then 20 years from now go out again and ask for $250 million now, because that's how much it's going to cost to expand it to 1,000 beds? I don't think it's not feasible, and we should not be paying for it. And
the big concern for the youth is that this got on the ballot.
well, they got on the ballot because of politics.
Yeah.
That's the only reason they got on the ballot.
How many people are buy that, vote for it?
Well, and that's why I'm here. It's a November election, and it's only a proposition, so people are not going to come out and vote. So we're trying to educate as many people as we can that go on. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, by law, aren't all the issues that are going to be in the ballot supposed to be announced?
It's already posted on.
They came out in the newspaper the last week in August, the propositions. The 6 propositions from the state of Texas came out, and they all are the ones that the Senate bill, the ones that came out with property changes. And those are the ones that are being looked at right now, where they want to reform the way appraisal districts work and how they tax, and all those reforms that the lieutenant governor was proposing. Those are going to be on the ballot also. And the only local proposition on the ballot is the new jail. But those came out, and it reads, we're asking anything incident there too, not only for this new jail for $125 million, but he also wants $8 million to fix the old jail and run it also. So
Group that's pushing, what is their, I mean, are they gonna try to scare the public? And also, if you could tell us some key figures that might be pushing for it.
well, what they're pushing for is saying a new jail will reduce crime. Jails don't fight crime. Jail houses criminals, and that's all it does. Okay? His job as a sheriff right now is to handle the people that go to court for the state courts. That's his primary job as the sheriff. Like the marshals with the federal government, the sheriff is for the state and here in the county. So his main purpose and main job is transported from the jail to the courts, jail to the courts. What he wants to propose is we need a training camp. We need a new school. We have a school at LCC already that trains our police officers, but we need a new school. We need an obstacle course also where we can run our cars and train people how to drive cars. We need a gun range also in order for them to practice. So he wants a type of facility there.
So this is what he said.
This is what he says because he has to for the force. What we're doing against is we don't need taxes. We don't need higher taxes. Our main goal, we're going to be educating the people and trying to hit the people that usually vote in November. We have multiple lists, and Vish knows what we do.
The only thing I want to add is,
Yes.
we are going to have a very special meeting just for that purpose because this is a very hot topic, just like the street maintenance. We'll have a special meeting just for this one, not one, maybe more than one. I just want everybody to know that too. We are going to have one just for this item. Even though today that's not the main item, but we will.
It's not the main item.
I promise you that we will have one of those meetings.
And we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And
Before election.
Before elections,
Before early
before
voting.
elections,
Before
before
early
everybody votes.
our campaign, we start our campaign next Monday. That's when we start our campaign. And you're going to see
Just
it.
one question here, if you can answer
I'm
that.
so sorry, what's the name of the proposition you're speaking of?
The proposition, we're going to be against the proposition of the $125 million jail.
So there's no name, it's just, that's what it is?
That is Proposition A
8, okay.
on the
Thank you so
ballot.
much.
It's Proposition A on the ballot, and we're against it.
Okay.
It's just the letter A.
Letter A.
Oh, letter A.
Remember, the cities go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
The county goes with letter A.
A is an apple.
A is an apple.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant 8 as in the number.
Eight,
A
eight,
is
eight.
an
Okay,
apple.
now the reason we invited all of you is because you are the leaders in this community. And so he came and planted the seed of what we need to do. This election is in November, we're in October. We have like 3 weeks, okay? So we need to tell everybody on your email list, on Facebook and everything, that we need to get them to go to the polls and vote against the jail.
But also too, what's really, really important is we need to play devil's advocate there too. We need to make sure that we know what we don't want about it and how it's all gonna work. That meeting that you mentioned a few minutes ago is really vitally important. We have to say, we don't like it, well, that's great, we don't like it. What can we stand opposed and why don't we like it? What are we gonna do to oppose that? We can't just say, I don't like it.
No, well, all you have to do is go to the ballot and vote against it.
Right, but
She's speaking about like
But-
trying
To
to.
educate
ease
people.
people's mind,
remember,
educate
I know what I want, but you have to,
Yeah.
the masses
Yeah.
have to know how, and to be educated somewhat.
To my knowledge, a group has been formed. That group is going to be the one doing the leadership in providing that information. Juan gave us a preview of Juan Hernandez gave us a preview of what's going to come. So just hang in there,
Yeah, 'cause you
hang
gotta be
tight, we
prepared.
will
You
have
gotta-
that information,
Can't
which
shoot
we can
bullets.
tell everybody else.
Yeah, thank you.
Including us,
Thank you.
including
Oh,
us.
yeah, it's really important.
Okay, so now I'm going to read to you also, there's an invitation for you all tomorrow. We have a new candidate for state rep. It's tomorrow at Slaughter Park by the basketball courts, and at 10 a.m., and it's Mr. Luis de la Garza, who's going to run for state representative for District 42 against State Rep Richard Raymond. So he will run with the Republican Party. So all of you are invited to attend tomorrow at 10 in the morning. Mr. Dominguez, will you be running for anything on the ballot?
No, not in March.
Not in March?
In the future ballot.
2018, maybe.
For the Laredo Municipal Court Judge.
Okay. So would you like to tell us who the candidates are for that?
I have no idea yet. I'm the only one that's filed a treasurer's report.
Okay.
So I'm the only one that can lawfully be campaigning.
Okay, well then, later on, you can come
We
and
appreciate the
tell
love.
us everything else. Okay, so,
Maybe there's a lot of new people here.
yes, so we're going to let you introduce yourself and with what group you represent, okay? So that we all get to know you. Mr. McBain, we'll start with you.
Yes, I'm Mike McBain. I have two companies here, Laredo Oct Transfer and RC Truck. And I have been here 20 years. We export cotton, U.S. cotton into Mexico. So we have warehouse property and we have truck traffic. And the meeting that starts at 7 is why I'm here.
Jose Ceballos, I think I know most of you in the room, but I'm here because I get the invite from Ellie, and we know we chat about different things amongst things, politics, campaigns, and things going on in the community. I also serve as chair of the Housing Authority, amongst other things. So.
Most of you know me too, but I'll go ahead. David Cardwell, former chairman of the Moving Laredo Forward, and y'all, I thank you for your support of that effort that we did. And also I'm affiliated with our Laredo group and the Right to Speak group.
I'm Marcia Jovel. I've been here in Laredo for 30 years, and I'm a taxpayer.
My name is Cordelia Flores, and I'm here as a taxpayer.
Ricardo Flores, a taxpayer.
James Varela, taxpayer.
Armando Cisneros, I'm with Our Laredo, and I've been attending these meetings, Right to Speak, for a couple of months, and a taxpayer.
Eduardo Villa, also a taxpayer.
Becky Garcia, taxpayer, Rotarian, just wanted to be a voice just like everybody else.
Guadalupe Ramirez, and I'm a taxpayer.
Armengol Guerra. I'm the president of the Laredo Hardware Company, and as Mr. McBain, I'm a little concerned about this new fee that they want to charge. Actually, I have 50 feet of frontage, and I have a warehouse and property that's about 60,000 square feet. How are they going to figure on a fee like with my type of property? I'd like to find out.
John Stabile, I'm retired. I've been living in Laredo for 19 years now. And I'm just want to get involved in some of the shenanigans that's been going on in the politics in Laredo. I think it's disgusting.
My name is Polly Sue Stabile, and I've lived here since 1983. I'm a retired teacher. I'm a member of Our Laredo and the Right to Speak.
Chu Dominguez, and I belong to the Coalition to Lower Taxes.
Imelda Rodriguez, taxpayer, and I'm a member of the Right to Speak and support Our Laredo.
Henry Herford, member of Our Laredo and Right to Speak, and also a taxpayer.
Rick Laurel, live in District 6, possible candidate for City Council.
Jose Obando, I'm just here as a taxpayer.
Jorge Vega, representing the Avenida San Bernardo Association.
Ricardo Quijano, this is my first time here. I want to get more involved in what's going on here with my community, and hopefully my voice can be do something right. Tired of what's going on here. That's why I'm here as a taxpayer. Yeah. Okay.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eliseo Rojas. I'm a Army combat veteran, also political science student at TAMU. I was invited here by Vishnu, so thank you, and nice to meet everybody. We have a few businesses here in Laredo. God granted us the opportunity to be able to buy some land a while back, and we have a business in San Bernardo, and we have 4 acres in front of Highway 35 on the 8-mile marker, where the big communications towers, where all the bridges are next to Loop and 35. One of the reasons I started getting concerned is my sister's in charge of financing for the businesses. Every year she complains about how much the taxes are going up, and with properties in San Bernardo next to 35, it gets pretty expensive. Also, I wanted to, I appreciate everybody for your knowledge and your competence, but I think it's time to also bring in some new faces. So I guess that's what we're here, the young generation.
All right.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Roberto Garza, and I'm a downtown merchant. Just came in to find out what the city wants to do with that money that they want to charge, to get more involved, see what we can help. Thank you.
Melanie? Yeah, I would like to recognize one other group. We talked about coalition to lower taxes. We talked about our Laredo Right to Speak group and our former Moving Laredo Forward. But we have another group here that's represented. That's the group that fought the CLMMD downtown Laredo. So I see a lot of faces here that were very strong in that fight. Okay, just want to recognize them.
Yes, Lupita?
No, I'm trying to call later for all this time. Can you go?
She's low on bread.
I'm so sorry. So you're going to do the presentation? Yes. Say a little bit about it so we can waste time.
Okay, we have Robert Eads and supposed to be here, but they're not here yet. So we have a few minutes.
We're still there.
Few minutes. So at this time, I will entertain anything from the floor if you want to say something at all. All I can say is we are fighting different battles at the same time. Unless we all work together, we cannot get this accomplished. You may not have faith in every issue, but join us. That's why we are meeting.
Since we have, I'll let you keep the mic. Since we have a few minutes, we allowed Chewy to speak, and he's going to.
I already asked Rick, and he said no.
You said no, Rick.
I'm ahead of you.
What is your question? Why don't we answer the question? How many are in District 6? Raise your hand. How many live in
District 6?
District 6. There's your base. Start working.
There's the District 6.
Oh, that's Charlie Simmons, yep.
Oh, I'm looking from District 6.
You are, okay, so,
Raise your hand.
so District 6 is everything north of Delmar.
Everything north of Delmar.
And there's a little piece around Target and Mary Health, but,
Okay, I'm in District 6, so
Because it was today.
sorry. Hope you're together.
If you don't know, if you go to the Our Laredo Facebook page, you will see a lot of videos there. What we do is we go to the city hall, we go to the city meetings, we take the videos and we cut what's relevant to a specific topic and we post them there
With an explanation.
with an explanation of what's going on and what not. You are welcome to go and see those, share those, whatever. Plus, if you have a specific concern, talk to us. Because we don't get all this information unless somebody tells us this is what's going on. That's where we start. The only problem we have is we have many more issues than the people who can work on it. So all I can say is help us. You are the ones who can help us to to get more information out to the public and make yourself available. That's why I'm saying, help us. We need all the help we can get. David has something else to say.
Yeah, since we have a few minutes, if you have your speech in your pocket, I would like to give you a 3-minute speech. If you did not hear or see the 3-minute speech that Melvin made as a historic speech.
Do you have it?
Bring it on, girl, bring it on.
Do you have it?
It's already there. It's already there on the Facebook.
It's on
page.
Facebook.
Right.
It's on
But
It's
Facebook.
historic. You need to view it.
Right. Not only that, before every city council meeting, we get together, we look at all the agenda items, we talk about it, we discuss it, and we come up with what we want to do, and we have a plan. It's not that we just show up on Monday morning like they do. Some of the council members
right,
show up,
good,
they
great.
do that agenda, but we do.
We do our homework and we do our research. And so by Thursday, if they've already posted it, we're looking at it, what issues, impact the majority of our citizens and issues that maybe they're not aware of. And so what we try to do, our purpose in Right to Speak is to educate the community and also to empower the people to speak for themselves, okay? To make them civic-minded citizens. Yes, sir.
Yeah. The one reason that they look at the agenda every Thursday is also they need to look to see if a supplemental agenda comes out. And they were surprised at the last city council meeting that Fish printed the agenda, item number 22 was Lazy River. And then he woke up a few hours later and they had removed that from the city agenda. Is that right, Fish?
Let me talk about that. Now,
All
we're
right,
talking
talk
about
about that, Vic.
okay? See, a lot of times, when we go to the city council, we question, we challenge what they are doing. In this particular case, Lazy River, you may or may not know what it really means. We started off with a small project to build a small pool, and we went from 400,000 to 1.2 million, to just keep going on and on and on. Now we are almost like 1.6 million. That's not the problem. The problem is, about a year ago, it's a long story, but I'll make it as short as possible. They gave a contract about a year ago. When they gave the contract, they did not have supposedly the insurances and blah, blah, blah. So the city goofed up, bottom line. Who pointed that out? Of course, us. The day I pointed that out, the next day they went and bought the insurance, believe it or not. Then we had the city council meeting, we have the insurance right now, so everything is good. No, because the contract clearly says when the bid is awarded, they should have all the paperwork done. The city failed in that. This is now, they were given 180 days. The project should have been completed, you know what, in March. So. It did not happen. It did not happen. I'm going to make it very short so because my guest is here. It did not happen. Then, we are 6 months behind schedule. So 2 weeks ago when there was a city council meeting, I pointed out that by the by, there's a rule in the city charter which says, if you are delayed by 1 day, there's a $700 fine. Are we going to start fining them? That was my statement 2-3 weeks ago. And guess what? Next city council meeting, this is what they were going to do. They were going to give an addendum to the project. Hey, let's do something else. Let's put a gate now in front of it. We'll give them another $125,000 and give them 125 more days. That is exactly the modus operandi of the cities like that. What they do is, they make a small change, it's called change order. Give them more money, give them more time, rather than fining them for the 6 months that they didn't do their job. I was already raising hell, even the agenda item disappeared. Exactly. Now, I'm going to cut it short. We have our
Yes. I want to let you know that we have the city staffers here. Mr. Eads is not here yet.
No, you don't have to move, but they are coming there.
You don't have to move, but they're going to check where you are. This the one, this the latest one, or which is this?
I don't know.
That one is the IBC presentation.
Okay, there's another one that they presented here with some of the answers that were asked for at the previous. And Robert is bringing it from his office. I was with him earlier and he did print some out. So what I'll do, while he gets here, I'll just start talking a little bit before we actually get the other. Right.
Before you do that,
Yes, let me introduce you to the city.
a couple of things we want to do. One, go ahead.
Okay. I want to introduce you to John Orfila, and he is the Director of Public Works for the City of Laredo. I want everyone very courteous and polite because he's a messenger that comes to educate us with regard to this. I mean, whatever our opinions are, we take it up with the council, okay? So that's where I expect all of you to go and voice your opinions. We need to listen to the information before we base our opinions on anything, because right now we know nothing other than there's a street maintenance fee. So I would appreciate your courtesy. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Once again, John Orfila, City of Laredo Public Works Department. And first of all, thank you all for having us and give you all my input and my take in the importance of this program that the city has, and again, which is paving the maintenance of streets, either residential, commercial, being an industrial park or being any part of town. And you all, I'll tell you, the city of Laredo has very good streets compared to other cities because of the maintenance that we've done throughout the years. And you all probably recall back in 2007, that's when two city managers started, which is Carlos Villarreal. He came in and started a very aggressive paving program in Laredo. We started off with $10 million. And of course, it was an actual bond. Here's Robert. It was an actual bond that we borrowed, and we're still paying back for those monies. And that particular, we paved 825 blocks in 10 months, because we actually started in January by the time we got everything together. 3 years later, more or less, we got another 5 million, and again, kept on paving streets. 2 years ago, we got a new city manager, and the bond stopped. And it's like Robert East liked to say it, it was a credit card we were using going to New York, borrowing money that we got to pay back for the next 20 years. And we cannot continue to do that. And this is not something that's just happening here. This is happening nationwide. Everybody's having problems getting the funding for a very expensive service, which is paving. We met with another group latter part of last week. They brought up some very good pointers, being, why don't the council members give us their monies? Okay, let's say they did. That would solve this coming year, but how about the following year and the following and the following and the following? So just like we have many fees throughout the city, we have solid waste fees. Your garbage and branches get picked up. Water and sewer. They provide water and sewer, and that's how we're able to have those services. The MPDES, we have the creek maintenance fee. That one is $225 a month in everybody's water bill, and that maintains the manpower to clean creeks and right-of-ways. We have the MPDES, which is your storm water mandate fee. That one there is, again, all the drainage improvements, which is all the detention ponds that we've built throughout the city and has obviously reduced a lot of the flooding throughout the cities. And now we need some type of solution, some type of permanent money stream in order for us to continue and don't let our streets deteriorate. We need to put a stop to that and continue with some type of paving program. But of course, we do have the manpower, we do have the expertise, we do have the machinery, but we do need the funding to resurface streets. And now that Robert's here, I told you all he had another presentation.
I do.
And because they brought up the last one.
Sure. Yeah, no, so what I did was, Robert Eads, by the way, Assistant City Manager with the city. Thanks for inviting us. Again, as John and Angie have discussed, we've actually made some other presentations. We're going to continue making other presentations. So what I've done is I've actually brought a couple of presentations together. There was an initial presentation that was made to council when the budget talks first started. And so that one, it was more detailed. It had a lot of basic information that we had to walk through, the reasoning, the way it's laid out, and that sort of talk. Once we got back to our last meeting that we had with City Council, when this was brought up once again, we were asked to bring back and speak to the justification, the legal justification, or the ability to even charge this fee. And so we did. But also, too, we didn't assume that this was going forward. In fact, the direction and directive from our city manager was to go out and do these types of public discussions, meetings. In fact, there's a survey that's going to be going out online within the next couple of days, I hope, from our Public Information Office. But in saying that, as you all know too, and to set this up as well, our budget has already been passed. There were 3 days worth of budget hearing meetings. They lasted the full up to the legal limit of 11 o'clock all 3 days consecutively. I saw quite a few of you out there, so thank you for staying engaged. And a lot of these things were discussed. What wasn't discussed was this portion here. This wasn't a part of the budget because we didn't feel as though that we wanted to assume anything and try to embed this or have this be a part of the budget. This had to stand by itself on its own, even past that, because we knew we had some work in front of us. So I took that presentation, added that information, and then as John just mentioned right now from another meeting too, there were some discussions as well on some like cities. And we always get that. Of course, you want to compare yourself, and we try doing that. But we also want to do it with true like cities. It's difficult, of course, in a lot of different ways, but just one basic one is that, well, we're pretty unique in the kind of traffic that we carry over our streets, one. Our region is a little bit different than a lot of other cities, so even when we try to compare, let's say, to a Corpus Christi, and their roads are horrible, no disrespect to them out there, but their roads are pretty horrible. But they have, again, a salt issue out there and, sea issue and all that other stuff. But we have our unique issues that we're trying to contend with, and really it's the high wear and tear. John was right in saying that we don't have a dedicated stream of money coming in. And he's entirely right. I keep saying, we've been buying groceries with credit cards. We're going to become hungry again tomorrow, and that's what's happened is we're hungry again. John's funds are running out; they're depleting, and so he's soon to be running out of those dollars. And we need to continue the program. I think in that most people, if not all people, would agree that our streets could be in better shape, and we honestly agree with that assessment as well. But in saying that too, we need to make sure that there's enough money put towards that to actually achieve what we need to achieve. And a lot of documentation you'll see in there is a lot of the reasoning, the background to it. We got 11,000 blocks that we have to do. And even with this funding stream, let's say we were to take this totality in itself and the way it's laid out and the $3 per resident and up to $100 per commercial. That still only gets us, and I say only, about 450, 500 streets and about 60 commercial roads. We have 11,000. So you all can do the math from there and to see how long it would take us to reach where we have to go. And so for us, it's very simple because we can live in the simple world. The harder decisions are at the actual city manager desk and the council members above us, right, making policy. But for us, it's quite simple. We understand that there's a running expense that has to be met for paving of roads. It's just how we do that. We pick our poison, really. And you just do it a couple of different ways. You do it through property tax, right? That's generally a lot of times that's what's used for maintenance, right? Because this is what we're talking about as well. Realize that we're only talking about maintenance. We're not talking about new streets. And we're not talking about streets that are entirely deteriorated, because it makes no sense for us to go out there and attack these streets that are just totally demolished. It's essentially rebuilding. What we want to do is approach the streets that have some life, some viable life. So the ones that are medium grade, medium deterioration, where we go out there and put some money towards it, not a huge amount according to what it actually costs to pave a road, but put in $5,000, $6,000 per city block, and we can save it another, how long, John?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of streets out there, and y'all live in the Heights area. They haven't been resurfaced in 30 years, and they're still not bad of
Relatively
shape.
good.
They could use a resurfacing though. So it depends on the type of part of town, but you can go anywhere from 15 to 20 years.
Right. And so for us, that's a smart way to go about it. Again, you want to be changing the oil in your car, as you go. You don't want to have to be buying new engines after they blow out every 3 to 5 years, whatever it may be. It doesn't make sense to us. And so what we're trying to do is do a pay-as-you-go, type approach. Really, fund it as it comes, not put something on a credit card that we're going to be paying off for 20 years that we know is going to last maybe 10, 12. And that's if it lasts that long. Bonds and that approach should be used perhaps for, new road construction. We don't disagree with you there, but the actual maintenance should come from another funding stream. And so you've got the property taxes where we receive our revenues. You've got bonds, which we've done before, which we don't believe, at least us, we don't think that's very sensible to do. And then, or three, another type of fee that would be assessed. Look, I got to say too, if John hasn't mentioned it, all three of us pay taxes. I pay, I can bring you my bill and show you, and I told, jokingly Vish a couple of times that I don't like it myself either. And there's a lot of different arguments against it. But I can tell you too, a lot of the presentation I provided too gives you the breakdown of how we use our general fund, how the budget is laid out and the priorities that are set by the council members. And so they do set policy. They do take that document and write policy based on this budget. And so we take from there and we work with what we have. So we understand, we knew coming out of the gate that this conversation would be a difficult one, and we understand it. We just came from the G13 last Friday, and there was quite a few questions and quite a few comments. A lot of them were a little off topic, which we understand. But then again, also too, another thing as well is that we can answer for certain issues and things. And I know it seems as though maybe an opportunity to kind of question some of these grander ideas or these other expenses. But unfortunately for a lot of that, we're going to be unable to give you or provide you responses. I mean, we got questioned about certain projects that were taken. A lot of questions about the district priority funds. Again, that's not something that's at our level at least, right? But what we can say at least is that we've been tasked with trying to find creative ways to go ahead and do this. And so this is an option that's been brought. It's been brought in other communities as well. And one of the things that happened at the G13 that John was saying, that we took information just from last Friday, and there was, again, about like cities and cities that aren't assessing fees. And so what the question was, well, do you even know what other cities' poverty rates are? Understand that our poverty rate is high. We understand that. I worked at the chamber for 10 years. I know exactly that. But also too, and that's what I've added as well, is their tax rates as well. What are they doing? I know, again, it doesn't get lost in us that our property values go up, so our tax rates go up. But we have maintained it at that rate for 14 years. We haven't wanted to touch that. And if we look at even some like cities, and again, we get compared to like the likes of FAR all the time, saying, well, FAR is doing this and FAR is doing that. Well, if you look at FAR's got a much higher poverty rate, and they had a much higher tax rate. So although there's some similarities to some degree, I provided that sheet, and you'll see it in there with some cities. But I provided population, poverty levels, and tax rates for each one of those. Try to draw correlations into it if you can. I really can't. But we're asked to provide that information because all cities have their differences. And we're very unique, and again, they don't carry the same traffic. I put in there Brownsville, I put in FAR, I put in El Paso. But even though we may be similar in certain things, we're far dissimilar in a lot of things, right? So if you can make any comparisons with the information we provided, better for you. We just weren't able to connect those dots at least, because there's just so many dissimilarities, so many differences that we can find the correlation with that. We know that for the vast majority of the public, whether it be residential or commercial, I don't want to pay any fee that I don't think I'm justly due to pay, and so we understand it as well. So we're providing the information to you, the system that, and you have it in the documentation, the system that we're using to do this is based on a study and the information and a matrix that's used with all the other cities that have a street maintenance fee or transportation user fee. And so it's based on, for commercial, remember, residential, it's $3 across the board per month. For commercial, though, it's based on the type of business and your square footage against the trip factor. Okay, so essentially what it boils down to is this. Depending on your type of business and the amount of traffic that's been assigned, it's been assigned a trip factor, a factor of how many cars, how many vehicles would come in and come out of your property based on your type business. And this is done by an institute. I put the documentation in there so you'll see where it comes from. And so if you've got a barber shop, so we'll take that barber shop, that's a low traffic type business. Okay, so that's one factor that they've got in there. And then we get your business type, it may be 2,000 square feet, okay. So we multiply all that together, have that formula, and we come out to a number. And that number will give you your trip factor number. And if you fall within a range from 0 to this number, you're in a tier 1 system. Most businesses, in fact, if you look at, it's almost, when you start looking at the proposed monthly fees, which are going to be your last 4 or 5 pages, and it starts off with the residential page, and it looks like this. So on your residential, we've got a little over 71,000 accounts, and that's where the math is done, and so you can start seeing the totals. What I wanted to point out was when you start looking at this page, which is the commercial where it starts, and you'll see where it says tier 1 and then tier 2. So what it's showing you in that tier 1, right, the column after, it shows you actually that range. So there's a number, it says 0 to 8.99. Well, that's actually the range that you would fall in for that tier 1 type business. And we have 555 accounts with that. So that's how you would read this here. And so this system and this math is done across the state the same way using the same matrix, right? And so we've received we have all the businesses, we have them all typed out based on type. And so we have the number of businesses towards the tiers. The one last thing that I will say about, well, not the last thing, right? I'm sure there's going to be plenty of questions, but on the tiers, when we had produced this, we produced it with 5 tiers. And in those 5 tiers, it included also the industrial park businesses. So what we had heard from the council was that they had a wish, or a discussion with us months back, saying that the industrial park, outside of this, that the industrial park should be paying their fair share of what they do on our streets. And so that they should be assessed a fee for just them. Knowing that, what we did was we built a 6-tier by themselves. And so that's why you see 6 tiers in our rates. They're the highest paying customers. And what I'd like to say about that is that not only does this money, and this is how I'll wrap it up all in a little bow. One of the better benefits of doing this type of system, outside of the negatives of having to pay in, but one of the positives though is when you use this type of fee system, it is dedicated by ordinance to only this. It will not go to police, fire, it won't go to parks, it won't go to the health department. It won't go anywhere else. It can only be used for this. So at least my $3 are going towards that. Whether I agree or not agree, at least you're going to have comfort that it's going to be put in there. The Tier 6 is where I want to also make mention, is that the Tier 6, being that it's separate and by itself, these 900 some odd businesses will pay into it. And it would be around $1 million per year, the way it's assessed at this point. But that would be further delineated only for industrial park areas for their improvements. Because as we're assessing them the higher rate, they're carrying a huge load of this. They would expect obviously the highest return for that. And so instead of being mixed in with all the rest of the road repairs, John and his team would be out there doing those intersections and those streets. What John has told me from his calculations and Angie in her office is that calculates to about 60 blocks in the industrial park areas, right? And there's a lot of also intersections that would have to be done, and of course that's concrete work as well, so it's much more expensive. So you'll have a couple things, and that's one key thing that we would see, and it's I reiterate, is that this would carry a funding stream forward, and it would be consistent. Because also to remember, if you have a directive from city council, a city manager saying, we are very interested in funding the streets department, which that would be great for us, right? So he'll get his money, we'll do the streets, and we'll continue working. Problem when we have a change, political, administrative, whatever change, it could be my focus will now be public safety. My focus will be greater in the park system, in the health side, whatever it may be. It might be away from streets. And so we get back into this problem where the shifting of prioritization will take away from that if it's not etched in stone. So at least for us, we see it, and only us, I don't speak for the city manager, the city council. For us, if we bake it in the cake, then it's set and it can be counted on going forward. And two, that it's dedicated for only that as well. So as I had a discussion and we had a pretty good give and take, and up till the 9th hour, they wanted to include a broader scope of improvements to include sidewalks and other things. I kind of wanted to corral that a bit because I said, if nothing else, and I mentioned it, I want to look people in the eye and at least tell them, I know for a fact it's going towards streets. Because once you open a door for sidewalks, you may open it up then a little more for hike and bike trails and there we go.
And questions too, Robert, because I already have a sidewalk in front of my house. Why am I going to pay if I already have a sidewalk in front? I've already heard that story.
Right.
I have a sidewalk. Why should I pay? I already have a sidewalk. I don't want to pay that.
But also too, let me say this, because we believe sidewalks are extremely important as well. Right. We know of those many other streams that may be available, and the council and management knows that there are other possibilities or other ways to go ahead and skin that cat at least. You got CDBG dollars that might be used in other ways to get this done. But the reason why we're here and the reason why we're giving the presentation and trying to explain it is to just tell you where we're coming from, what we've been tasked to do. We know it's a difficult sell. We understand that. We didn't expect anything less because I can tell you at my house, my wife's not too happy. But again, we've been asked to go ahead and take a look at this and see if this is a possibility of a way that we can get this done. Because if not, we're going to have to start finding other ways to go ahead and fund this. Streets don't go away. That's a quality of life issue, and that's an economic development issue.
If I may also, Robert, right now we touched on Corpus, which I touched on when I first introduced myself. City of Corpus, one thing I don't want to do, because we do, at least my department, I can tell you, we take pride in our work, we take pride in our city, every single employee that we have. And years ago, again in 2007, we started with this paving program. And one thing I don't want to see is this city go to, like example, City of Corpus. City of Corpus, the fees that they're doing, they're outrageous. They're up to $2,200 a month per business on some of them, depending on where they fall on their tiers. So we'd like to, again, do something now, for we won't have to come in with a stronger fee in the near future. Because I think right now, yes, there's some streets, a lot of streets that need resurfacing, but we're not as bad as other cities, I can tell you.
Well, and some of the rates, and again, I put some examples, not all of them, but I put some examples. Corpus Christi residential, they do a residential fee of $5.38.
Show them the page where you're at.
I'm sorry. No, we don't have a laptop. The intent was that we're going to go through, we thought it was going to be a little bit intimate. Yes, ma'am.
We're going through, how many other cities that you put on the list, which I haven't even looked at?
Yes, ma'am.
How many other cities already have fees in place? And another question, what is the cost of paving here compared to McAllen, the cost of paving per square foot or whatever, residential or versus, I mean, I'm sure you have different costs, maybe
Sure.
residential cost, repaving costs one thing or resurfacing, and then intersections, heavy intersections cost different, but do you have a comparison?
Well,
How we spend it and how other cities spend their square footage on the paving?
So I can answer the cities, and on your presentation, you'll have a list. Right. No, you're all right. But, yeah, no, the ones that we know of already, Austin, Corpus Christi, Bryan, Taylor, Harlingen, Kingsville, Lampasas, Abilene, Arlington, Corsicana, Lubbock. Right. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, it's this page right here.
The last page?
No, yeah, about the middle part.
Austin?
Yes, ma'am.
Poverty rate before
The page before, that's the one there. Yes, ma'am. And then what they charge as well, so,
And what would they pay, what would it cost then?
right, per street. John, you want to go cost?
The oil is based on, the asphalt is based on the price of oil, so it's pretty much the same rate depending, Texas has pretty much the same rate of the oil, it's gonna cost the same. What other cities do have is they sub a lot of it out. And people, when they do sub it out, they obviously, the owner of the companies, now, they've been in my office many times, one of them is Cutler. I can do a street for approximately about $6,500. And the other companies were a standard 27 by 300. When others, companies that have gone to my office, you're looking at about $11,000 for that same block. Because again, there's manpower, there's equipment, and there's profit. We don't make a profit. Our crews are not, there's two crews that go in when we surface a street. The milling crew is it's 5 employees. Angie, correct me if I'm wrong. And the paving crew, I believe there's probably 7.
But if you're gonna raise the number of streets you're gonna pave, you're
It's
not gonna raise the number.
it's the same people. The same people that I just mentioned did 825 blocks in 1 year.
And what's happened today, if I can, John, what's happened today is that he slowed down on his general paving side because of the slowdown of funds, but also because there have been quite a few projects by other departments that essentially contract our Public Works Department to go out there to do the work. Casa Verde is one good example. That was a Utilities Department water line replacement project on Casa Verde. And there was a portion in there on the utility side to come back after you replace the line to do paving. And so instead of going back out there and paying $300,000 to do the paving, we actually contracted Public Works and came out, what, half of that?
More than that.
And,
More than that.
and
Back to the sidewalks.
yes, ma'am.
Walking the streets of Laredo, on some of those sidewalks that are all bulging, you can break an ankle there.
Yes, ma'am.
Easily.
Yes, ma'am.
A lot of those sidewalks.
Yes,
There is
ma'am.
many.
Is that part of the course?
Yes, we do have a crew that, we usually just get 311 calls, and that's what they do, remove and reconstruct sidewalks, remove and reconstruct valley gutters, remove and reconstruct curb and gutters where there's stagnant waters. Keep in mind that there's stagnant water citywide, and many of, we can't, it would take us years.
Because they resurfaced
Uh-huh.
my street, and there was a little dip, and the water would run into the gutter. Well, they removed the dip, now the water just stays there stagnant right in my house.
What's your address?
1530 Palm.
What we're gonna do
Oh,
here is,
Plantation,
we
yes.
know that time is precious for a lot of people, but we want to make this as productive as possible, and we're so happy the city is here, so we're gonna go around. Here's the next question right here to my right, so please raise your hand. You'll be next, Rick. Right, here's the question here. After we get those two, then raise your hands again. Right, here's the next question.
On tier 6, that's basically your warehouse property. Does the study with the traffic count get built into this $100 fee, or is the traffic count on top of the $100 fee? Because there's a trip, there's a number of trips or a vehicle count or something.
Right.
As part of that study that got this to $100.
Right.
Is it built in, or is it on top of the $100?
No, it's built in. It's built in. That $100 would be based on those identified properties, those 900 and some odd. 905 properties already. But that's the rate for all of those.
It doesn't matter if it's Killam or if it's West Laredo.
All of them.
All of them. And we have some in Central Laredo. I'm sorry.
$100 this is part of his question.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Those $100 are part of a flat fee, or is it a per trip, or how do you?
Flat fee. It's a flat monthly fee for them as well. So all of these are flat monthly fees, right? So if you're tier 1, it's $10 a month for your business. And then it goes down or go up, depending on the tier level, all the way to 6, which is $100. So the greatest fee would be $1,200, which would be your industrial park that would be paying that per year. But that money, again, all of those dollars would stay with industrial park improvements, not for general street maintenance.
And how does the city, how do the citizens go at the end of the year to see what you did with that money?
So what we're planning on doing is, we've got a list of streets already identified, quite more than we have funding for. But the plan is to go out there, publish those online, and to provide the progress reports as they're being done, and checked off the list, and then we'll put the other 500, 600, 700, as many as we can do, and check off the list.
One more question, John, where's your office?
5512 Thomas in the base, 2 blocks south of El Metro Park and Ride, north of El Metro Park and Ride.
North.
Okay. Rick?
Thank you. So I see that you've had this really well planned out and studied. How long until the next time that we're sitting here again thinking, okay, well, $3 isn't enough anymore? We're going to raise and ask for an additional $2, an additional $3 to be able to take care of the growth and the spin-off. You mentioned a river of funds that this is going to create, but how long is that going to last us before we outgrow this metric?
Right. So the way we have it planned out, we purposely did a 4-year cycle, right? Because we wanted it to sunset, and so that in the ordinance itself, it calls for it to come back after the 4 years. And quite honestly, any ordinance can be called up at any time to review, right? So, but the idea is to review and assess it to see if it stays, it lowers, it raises, but there would be a sunset, and that's why it's only a 4-year cycle. 2 years of the $3, and I'm talking about the residential, because that's easy math for me. So $3 for 2 years there, and then $4 for the next 2 years, but it's only 4 years long.
Do you think, I'm sorry, second part of
No,
the
no, no.
question is, do you think that it is somewhat in danger
Mhm.
for a future city council to come in and say, wait a minute, we're gonna cut this out? How are you gonna be left then to fend for your department?
Right.
I mean, wouldn't it be more feasible to say, this is all included within the tax rate that is already there, or an adjustment to the tax rate?
Right.
Instead of saying, well, we have a whole new board, and
Right.
this new board is already taking away these $3 per household.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, that's all left to, our city council, of course, but from what we've seen, at least historically, is that tax rate is pretty persistent and pretty, it's been there for 14 years straight. And so, not to say that it's gonna stay there for another 14 years, but it seems to be the trend to just let the valuations add to the revenues, and we're fine with that. And that's one concern that we would have, is to say, those are, I think, more susceptible to change. And not only that, but even if you were to make those adjustments on the property tax, that's a minor management decision to say, management can make the decision within the budget to say, we need to shift dollars away from here and put it towards parks. Here with this fee, again, it's still a fee, it would stay there if nothing else. So there's some good and bad. I see where you're going with that, and it's a good conversation, but we've just seen, at least for, the last 14 years, that's been pretty persistent, and really because of the continued growth. And if there wouldn't be that growth, then I think probably they would have had to consider moving that 63.7 rate to something different. And I suspect that next year there's going to be that continued growth to be able to maintain at that rate. But we would love to, I mean, we talked about that this morning, to say, if he could be built in the budget instead, we would love that as well.
We talked about, if I live in South Laredo, my house is worth $50,000. Well, I'll pay, let's just say 1 penny tax rate. I pay $15 a year. If I live in Plantation, $250,000, well, I'm gonna pay $25 a year. Your warehouse, they're all different. So again, that was another alternative. We would save, at the beginning of the year, I would have the money ready to go. But like Robert said, new council members come in, I want a piece of that pie, and guess what? Here we go back with no money to pave streets.
Okay, I'm Armengol Guerra, and I have a business that was founded in 1946, Laredo Hardware Company, 401 Market Street.
Uh-huh.
I'm right in the middle of 2 railroad tracks. I have 50 feet of area, or 50 feet of frontage with Market Street, and I've got 2 blocks going back. How are you going to figure a property like that? And besides that, I've got 2 railroad tracks which are much higher than my property, and every time it rains, my parking lot gets flooded. I guess you've already got all of these properties in the system. I guess we can look at it somewhere.
Well,
but I've got an unusual situation because most of my property, the property that's in the back, it's not worth much.
Right.
You're talking about very low value.
Right. So the way just our math works, it would be, again, based on your trip factor that's based on that study, which is listed in here. You can pull it up. It's a 9th Manual International Transportation. And a hardware store, we look up a hardware store and see what that number is, right? And then what we do is we get your square footage from WebCAD, pull up square footage. And that's where we do the math, right? Nothing on valuation, nothing on anything more than what's established for a trip factor and what you have for square footage. And that's how we would get your tier. So we would put you in a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. I suspect that a hardware store probably won't have a large tier number, just because of the amount of traffic you would think a hardware store would generate. I'll tell you right now, the high traffic areas are gonna be, believe it or not, your coffee shops, your fast food restaurants, even your banks, you know.
Open 5 days a week.
Right.
Okay, right over there, Armando?
Yes, Mr. Orpila, you said that cities can do one block for about $6,500. I think that's what you said.
6,500, yes.
Okay, and as opposed to 11,000 for a private company. Pero I was wondering, the city's cost includes the manpower and the equipment.
The material, based on the amount, the cost per ton right now at this time is about $5,700. Plus the labor, that's why I took it to 65, so yes, it is.
Okay, so that does include the labor.
Yes.
Labor, yes.
And at 828 blocks, I think that's what you said you,
825,
okay.
828 blocks.
So 11,000, that'd be.
If you do the math, yes. That's at 800 blocks.
Yeah.
So it'd be
13 years.
26 years at 400.
Okay, so the fee would be for, in fact, for all that time?
No.
No?
Years it's set up for.
Just for the first 4
Right.
years, and you would allocate it for 13 years or whatever?
Well, what we would do is that you would have that, the money's generated for the system set up for year one, pays for about 500 city blocks, right? And then year two, it's the same rate, right? So you'd get the same amount. Actually, you would have a few blocks less just because of cost of materials, but let's say the same rate. The next jump you'll have is to that $4 rate or the third year, right? And so you have an adjustment there. So there we may go, you know, to 500, 550, 600, you have the number, 596?
It depends also, Robert. We're saying for anywhere from 450, 550, but once we throw in a street like, as an example, McPherson, Sierra Vista, those wide ones, obviously it's gonna take a lot more materials.
Right.
So it's gonna vary, depending on where we surface.
Okay, so you answered the crux of the.
Yeah, but because, if we're doing this, it's 4 years. But if you're attacking 500 blocks, you do the math, right? We'll be doing 22 years to get back all the way around. If you don't start biting more of the apple. Right.
We have a question right here.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. What you're proposing, it sounds great and so forth, but I'm coming in as a individual lives in Winfield, and I have a business on McPherson Road. We have a survey that's going out, it looks like to me, and a bunch of other people that are getting surveyed on this traffic and what you're talking about exactly. But coming from a business owner's train of or mindset, we do everything, we're a small business, we think how we can control everything. Y'all are government, municipals, et cetera, and it's almost like government, running government, and they've been doing it forever and ever, and they really don't think outside of that box. And what I do individually in our business is I go and see how efficient we can run. Now, we in Winfield, we'll get individuals that are coming and they have potholes all over the place, et cetera. When the individuals have to come out there and repair these streets, I mean, it's over and over and over. Now, I told my employee, if you can't get that done right the first time, we need to get somebody else here. So that's what the crux of the problem is that we need people that are competent, we need people that know what they're doing, it needs to be done right the first time. When you can see something, it's probably something that's important that happened, but they'll lay the whole thing out, and then all of a sudden they're gonna come back and they're gonna redo the whole darn thing. Maybe fire, goodness gracious, where'd that come from? But it's just me, it's in me, okay? I would fire them, but first, let me train you first. Let me make sure I'm inspecting what I expect. And man, if you would do that, out of all these cities that you're looking at here, we would be up there. And we were the forerunners, trendsetters of what we do. But we have to go and inspect what we expect. We cannot continue to use my money and everybody else's money and take it for granted, because they're going to bust everybody out of there. They need to change and make a change in their mindset and understand there is a way of doing things. It can be different, it can be different.
I highly agree with you.
And
let me just answer your question. The biggest enemy to asphalt is water.
Overspray.
Plantation, Country Club, Lakeside, Los Palmares are the biggest spenders of water. Actually, the city loves those subdivisions, the water department. Now,
I run that one too.
You go to against Central Laredo, we patch a hole, it'll last. Here you go, anybody familiar with Kaledi Heights? The sidewalks are green because of mold. I can patch it I can remove and put 10 inches of asphalt. That water goes into the base area.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, what I've
There's
already
nothing
seen,
I
what
can
I've
do.
already
Save your own
seen,
water.
what I've already
Of
seen,
course.
what I've
Yeah, the
already
water
seen-
pops it because
What
it
I've
becomes jello
already
again.
seen, guys, is that there's a problem. The problem is, nobody fixed the leak. My neighbor in Winfield, he's got, well, they need to redo the roads, just like you described. But guess what? There's a damn leak in his yard, and he needs to get his butt fined. Because that way, what happens there is that we don't have to
Exactly.
pay for it as taxpayers.
The entrance
We
to-
already find out that there's a problem. You gotta identify the
The
problem,
entrance
knock
to
the problem
Winfield,
out, and
the
let's get
entrance to
rolling.
Winfield, excessive amount of water.
Yes, yes,
Go-
you're right, you're right.
Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Guadalupe Ramirez. I have a question. Why are we discussing the street maintenance right now when the budget just got implemented a week ago? You know, why were we discussing this before? So that we could have come up with the ideas to incorporate this expense into the budget. That way the councilmen wouldn't have gotten $600,000 each. And I know you're gonna say this fixes this 1 year.
No.
But then that's gonna be next year, they're gonna get the same allowance in the following year, and the
Right.
following year. There are $5 million sitting there, that we can use part of that, because they get like over $5 million
That's what I talked about at the
every year,
beginning.
Right.
every year.
In fact,
So we
right,
could have used that money
Right.
every year and appropriate some of that money for the
right.
maintenance.
So just real quick on that. So I know since starting this, this is our second go at this, right? So we had this presentation to the council last budget year, prior to budget as well. So we had this conversation once before. And it went nowhere fast, real fast. And then, so with this new budget coming up as well, we started having the same conversations again. Again, they're policymakers. We follow direction from the city manager, from their policy. And the decision was to set this aside, let the budget go, and have this work be done. Now, I got to say too, with the idea as well that Public Works right now has funding that could limp us along, right? But what we're trying to do is having this sustained, long-lasting ideas come into effect. So we have been having this conversation now for 2 years, and it's working out that way. Again, the budget is a list of priorities, and this is the way the priorities were provided to us, and we make, the lemonade from the lemons. But we have been providing this approach, and I think the council, if anybody was at the workshops, knew and heard our presentation. But again, the priority was with some other things, and so be it. That's their prerogative.
David, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, my question is, in all of this that I've read, I never saw anything about a single-family residence with, say, 2 3/4 people, or whatever it is, 3 1/4 per person, living in that house, as to what the average water bill is. And what happens is, I know for a fact what our water bill is, and I have 3 sisters that live in Los Angeles, California, and their water bill is not as high as mine. And it, by the way, it does include trash, it does include sewerage, it includes all the things that are on our water bill when we pay it. I mean, and California's in worse condition than Texas is. Why is it that their water bill is lower than ours? The other thing is, didn't we just encumber a $98 million bill for a secondary water supply? Who's going to pay for that?
Right.
Or who's paying for that? Our water bill is going to pay. So you're talking about, okay, we're going to add another $3 this year, we'll add another $3 next year, 4. But then, what about all of these bonds that we're going to pay for this $98 million secondary water source? Who's going to pay for that? Our water bill, right? So it's going to go up and up.
Right.
Until we can't afford it.
So just to answer that, the water bill itself is the vehicle to get you the statement only. And we're using the resource of a water bill to go ahead and assess it so that we don't have to mail one other piece of mail to you.
Right.
So, but we don't use, and I understand your utility questions, which are away and outside of these, because this, we're talking about street maintenance and streets only, but we're gonna be putting it on the water bill. So we realize also the optics of having one other thing on your water bill, so my water bill is, and believe me, Mr. Ria complains to me to no end, saying, and he's the director of utility, saying, you're using my bill and people are complaining to me for John's fee. And so that's the reason for that. But those are points well taken, and we understand. We're there at the same council meetings listening to the same information you are, so we take them and we understand them, right?
Right here. Okay, so, I can probably sit here and talk for 3 hours and not.
No, not you, Vish. Not you. 3 minutes.
Nobody
3 minutes.
or anywhere outside is going to say they don't want to fix the street. That's not the issue here. But the issue here is several other things. I'm going to point that out right now. With the fee increase, for example, one, what's important to you right now is the $3 fee or the $100 fee for the big businesses like Mr. Almagol is talking about. What you don't realize is just this year, I cut my tree in the house because it fell down and I put it on the street. There's a fee for that. Last year, if you are doing a garage sale, there's a fee for that. Every year, there's a lot of fees added here, a lot of fees added there. I don't want to go through the whole list. You know that more than anybody else, I know how many different new fees were added. Okay? So when you look at your $3, but I am looking at all those dollars, plus, just before you guys came, this man here was talking about the jail. Oh, it's only $100 for every house. Only $100.
I'm against it.
What I'm trying to say.
That was a nice setup. Thank you.
What I'm trying to say, for Ria is one thing, for you it's something else, for somebody else it's something else. Garage sale, oh, you have to get a ticket. Everything you can think of, there's a fee added to it. It's just not the $3, number one. Again, it's a misnomer saying your taxes did not go up. The taxes go up in 2 different ways. One, the appraisal. 2, the way they increase in the actual fee rates. You did not increase the rates, but most everybody sitting here, except who are Narvises, I say that because his property went from 490 to 450, mine went up. So did everybody else sitting here. We are all paying more taxes because the appraisal value went up. It's very important. I'll tell you why in a second. This year, do you know because of the appraisal value how much money we are going to bring in? $68 million. Is that correct?
Probably, Vish. You tell me.
I can prove it. $68 million.
I believe you, Vish.
$68 million. Listen to me, guys. Because of the tax increases, tax didn't go up. The appraisal increases. $68 million coming to this year to the city of Laredo. Now, if you did all the calculations you did with everybody paid $3 and $100, from your chart, you are bringing $5 million for the first year, maybe 5.5 the second year, whatnot. When you bring in $68 million from appraisal value increases, take $5 million from there, put it here, and put this in trash. I mean it. That's only one item. I'll tell you more. I can prove all this. I can prove everything I'm saying here. I can prove it. It's even here. Second, if I come to, you saw me in city council so many different times.
No.
I will sit here and prove each one of you how much wastage is there. When I say wastage, I mean wastage. If you want 5 million, I will find 10 million for you. I'm not kidding. From 5 million from here, the appraisal value increases, and 5 million from the wastage that everybody else in the world has. I will prove it to you.
You don't have to remember, Vish, this has...
I agree. What I am saying is, bottom line, this is not what we want. Our priority has to change.
Vish,
the money is
time out.
The money is there.
Someone
All
asked
right.
for him out of the window.
You got to remember, Vish, please remember, Vish, stand by. This has not passed yet.
I understand.
Now, I am not, like we said, we don't want this fee either. But we need to find some sort of solution.
You need to go back to your manager, You need to go back to the city council.
That's why we're here. That's the reason why we're here. We're getting input and we're gonna relate it.
But that is the truth, which nobody in this room want to hear.
He's pointing at him, he's pointing again.
You don't want to hear it. Try and go and telling that the city council. Nobody wants to hear. Money, $68 million is sitting there from appraisal value. You want to make us another $5 million from here? Yes.
And what happens to that 68?
This-
That's what we gotta get at. That's what we gotta figure out. Where's the
Okay,
68?
all right. We will bring this back around to the street maintenance fee. Here's the next question.
It's really just a comment. Vish, I agree with you, Vish. I think, but
We all agree with you.
I agree in the sense that it's really about, and you look at this chart, 183 million, right? So if
See,
you
you're
take
hidden.
3% off of that, you've got your 5.5. If we manage to,
That's what we were saying, Bob.
if you manage to take 3%,
Right.
the 5.5 every,
Right.
out of the 60 million or whatever the appraised value is that you're increasing, that actually is a very good point, right?
Right.
So, and I think that's the challenge in many respects. You all are the messengers. You're not making policy, and we understand that, and I respect you all, taking the questions in the heart, the heat. But I think that's, if we saw an action by city council that decreased expenditures, you've got Parks and Rec at 19 million. If we all shared, every department shared, maybe not police and fire, but every other department shared some reduction, I think it would make everybody's job easier. It would also project, it would also project a conservative way to approach setting a budget, right? Where you actually have a reduction in costs.
Right.
Well, but it would be a reduction in terms of expenses. You may end up with more. So my point is, we start off with a certain number, a certain expense level. If you already start by a decrease, you're already winning. And in this case, I think our budget went up, right, from last year?
Yes.
So that's, to me, my point,
Yeah, and if I can, Joe, I think you hit it, and Vish is correct too. I mean, again, we understand that it's a tax increase as well. We agree with that. We've also agreed with you that it's a set of priorities that you set, right? We just stated right now, we made a point to say that for us, it would be much easier to just have it built into the budget and, not have to go on this beat me tour for now 43 days that we have left, and that's okay. But let me say this too, because the young man asked also too, where does it go? Where does the 68 million go? Where do the dollars go? And I can tell you honestly, and the breakdown is there, but let me just give you one quick one, and this is not to put blame on anything. This is just how the math works out, right? So you've got, 60, 62, 63% off the top going to police and fire, right? And that's by contract. So that's legally bound contracts that we have. So for every dollar that's given out of the 68 million or the 180 that came in, we have to take, out of every dollar, we take 63 cents and say, no, nobody look at this. This is going first to police, fire. Everybody else.
Hold on for a minute. I want to say something here. The $68 million that I talked about is the brand new money we got this year only because of the tax.
Bish, hold on, time out. Give me 1 second, and I'm gonna get back to you. And in any, what I was saying was any dollars, whether it be the 68, the 180, whatever it may be, that $1 that comes in out of however many, 62, 63% go directly towards these obligations that we have. We can do nothing about it. Council can, at this point, do nothing about it.
Expiration date on that legally?
There are, but there's renegotiations that they have to have. So the challenge for us is that when we see that dollar come in, everybody gets real antsy on our side. Yeah. But when that dollar comes in, everybody is only looking at 38 cents out of that dollar to split amongst us, right? And even though it's quite a bit, grant you, it's still quite a bit. But we start off by doing that
So out of those
cut.
68 million, 42 million, according to what you said, went to the police,
Well, if we've got 68 come in, right, if 68 came in as Vish said,
And 43 goes to.
I'd
like to make
But
a
what would
comment.
you have done if the 6 year never came?
What's that?
You had a budget, this is brand new money.
No, no, I agree, but Vish, 63% out of any new dollars, new or old, goes straight to, by law. Yes, by law.
So we got
One question
over here, and then I'll, okay, go ahead.
Just one, I just have one comment. What kind of negotiating
Yeah.
do we have from the
That's the
city?
problem.
What kind of negotiating?
That's the attorney.
They don't know how to negotiate.
We need to have somebody that can negotiate with
sure.
these unions.
I'm
We
a
don't
buyer.
have, we don't
You
have
have
a
to know how to
good,
negotiate.
and it's very
You
easy
don't
to
get
say
out.
that it's already going straight
Uh-uh.
and wash your hands from it because somebody negotiated that. Nobody knows how to negotiate.
That's the problem. No, they don't.
Time out, let me just quickly respond to just one thing that, with that.
Then the next question will be from Caesar over here on the side.
These contract obligations are multi-year, and so what I'm saying is, once they're signed and they're out the gate, for the next, whatever it is, 4 years that they're signed for, we have a legal obligation to comply with those.
That's fine, but we still need a good negotiator.
I don't disagree with you.
have to.
That's,
the problem right there.
right.
I'm a buyer.
Right.
I buy every day,
Right.
and I can negotiate
Right.
like there's no tomorrow.
Right.
But you better have a negotiator in your house. If you don't have a negotiator in the house, your house is gonna collapse.
That's a good comment, even though it's not related to this.
Right.
But I hope that you'll take that
Very
comment back, because that
Sure.
comment does need to be shared.
Sure.
That's at the foundation of the health. We
Caesar?
fight for the laws.
I'd like to say, first of all, I have a lot of respect for this man right here, just like I had a lot of respect for Lawrence Berry when he came to town and the city started moving forward.
You sure?
Back when I came to Laredo back in 1970, doesn't have a street paved in Laredo. So we've gone a long way, and I think you guys are doing a good job. And, but I was looking at your pie chart you have here, and I was wondering why it costs more to clean streets than to pave streets. And I was also wondering why street cleaning.
That's on your budget. Oh, that's probably his old one. Yeah, it's the old
Hold
one.
on, let me find what you're looking at. Robert has a whole bunch of
No,
pie charts.
this is yours. That's your budget.
No, but it's a relevant question, I
It's a
believe,
department
because
budget.
it came
John can
up.
explain the department budget.
It came
That's
up
his,
from the last meeting, too.
right.
Okay. You asked about creek cleaning?
Is it street
That
cleaning
is-
or creek?
Which one do you want to know?
Creek.
Well, first of all, I wanted to know why does it take, 1 minute to clean the streets then?
The street cleaning, okay.
Street cleaning.
What is the cost of a street sweeper? Anybody know? They are out there. I mean, again, we have 688 miles of streets in Laredo. They drive at 5, 7 miles an hour when they're sweeping. They're not going 30 miles an hour. Once their hopper fills up, they gotta go dump. A cost per sweeper is approximately about $220,000 each. They're very expensive pieces of machinery. And again, I'm a great believer in keep our city clean, residential, commercial streets. And I would probably say our streets are clean.
We're community service.
You go to like city of McAllen, they only sweep major thoroughfares. They don't do residential streets. City of Laredo does do residential streets.
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
It is an expensive operation, and again, you do need the manpower.
And it's $1.8 million in the budget, right?
Approximately, yes.
I lived in California
Go ahead.
for 33 years and drove on the freeways of California and never had my windshield chipped.
That's TxDOT here, that's not the city, okay?
But I came here to Laredo and I was driving to work on Loop 20. In the 17 years that I've been here.
I agree with you. I've
replaced 6
talked to
or 7
TxDOT many
windshields.
times.
My insurance company hates
TxDOT has a contractor, they have, I believe, 1, maybe 2 sweepers that come once a month and they're gone.
Okay. John, the other item was the quick cleaning.
Okay.
It's also.
Creek.
Creek cleaning.
Yeah. Pull another
I mean, this is.
Creek cleaning is
We're
again,
here for that purpose all the time. Did we have,
National Guard helping us do that?
No. No, that was when they did, back in the day, they did Zacate Creek, back in the 70s, that they came in and they widened it up. But no, they have not come in.
But is this something that can?
That doesn't come from general fund either. That comes in, again, from, I told you all from the beginning, on your NPDES fund, there's your stormwater maintenance fee, and there's a creek maintenance fee that's already on our utility bill, which is the $2 per month. And that's where that money's come from.
Okay, Julie, you're gonna be the last, and then I'll close it out. Did you have any comment?
One of them goes back to, on the propositions that the state are proposing, are you aware with them? Are you aware of
Which
the
one?
propositions?
Propositions that are out and mailed out to everybody, they should have them by now.
The ones where they're trying to revamp the appraisal districts of how the values of the
Right.
property goes up.
Right.
And if they use something like that, then the property rates, the ratio, well, not the ratio, but the values, the appraisal districts won't be able to be going up every.
There's gonna be a ceiling.
They're gonna put a cap.
And the city count, no government entity likes to raise taxes.
Of course.
We know that. But they allow everybody that works with government to raise our taxes. So basically, we call them fees, and we call them maintenance fees, and we call them schedule fees, and we call them assessment. But
Service
it's
fees.
a tax. It goes toward government, and it's going at that. So if they do something, and the government, and the state, and it passes, and the appraisal district's not able to raise their tax, the appraiser anymore, the city's gonna raise taxes again. There's not gonna be, because the funds are gonna be there, like Mitch said, $68 million worth of new fees are coming in because all the values went up all over Webb County. And those fees that we depended on are not gonna be there. So what is it that's important in priorities? And you say, well, each council is different, the politics are different, some people concentrate on certain things. I think streets, maintenance is important, sidewalks are very important. I think the police, firemen are important, but I think we need to start renegotiating things that we've done in the past now. Things that, like, the negotiations with 63% that go to the budget. These people work 2-3 days out of the week, and they're getting the bulk of the budget, and it's important, but they cannot stay there forever.
Yeah, it's
The
not
federal
gonna be
government,
in there.
the federal government negotiated with the police agencies, there's mandatory retirement for one reason, is to top off. The people, there's police officers, I think I saw it in the paper, I think there's a district director with the fire department making $208,000, and the police chief making $176.
Right.
And it's because of the amount of time.
Tenure.
Longevity that's been there.
Yep.
So it gets to the point, if you start off at 23, I think 57 would be a nice cutoff.
Like the federal government, what you're saying.
And then we start saving money because it goes back to the young people to keep up
They'd have the energy to
working.
do all the work, that are more efficient.
So I would suggest that we start renegotiating our contract so we can start doing something and cutting the 63%. And even we get 3% back or 7% back on that budget. Over here, believe me, we'll be cutting our taxes.
So if I could.
We'll be cutting those assessments that you
Put
already
vision
have.
on negotiating?
Yeah, well, look, and we're going to take that back, but just one thing also, I just want to say on, because I'm thinking about this right now, I think the $68 million amount that you're thinking, I think that's an increased valuation. Right, but.
It doesn't matter, there's still 63% coming out of whatever's coming in.
No, I agree, but what I'm saying is 68 million didn't come to us. It's 0.6637 cents out of every 100 of that 68 million. So the actual cash influx wasn't 68 million, it was 68 million worth of valuation based on our tax rate of 0.637. So that would work out to something different. We didn't get an extra $68 million into our general fund. Well, the general fund is $180 million, and I don't think we got a new third of it come in. I think it was probably valuation. I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong, so be it.
All right, you got the last, and then I'm gonna close this.
Okay. If people want to talk, you should get my chance. I'm not talking about being general.
All
right. Bottom line is, I'm not saying the street should not be maintained. I think what you're saying here, I think if I can talk for me rather than the group, because the groups may have their own ideas. And sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't, it doesn't matter. What really matters is, there's a lot of wasteful spending in the street. We need to look at that, take a hard look at that, take a hard look at that. Like she said, I run a smart business too. For me, my bottom line is if I bought a piece of paper from Office Depot is expensive, next month I go to Walmart. That's right. Okay? Because I'm a small businessman. I have no business background. That's not even my background. What I'm trying to say is, we need to take a hard look at it and reprioritize things. Street maintenance is something we have to happen. Let me say something else here also. When we don't have streets properly maintained, do we want a $3,000 post sitting there which looks very, very nice in some neighborhoods? No, we don't. So I'm not just talking about your department doesn't need the money or some other department doesn't need the money. I am talking about all wasteful spending, including the city council members and including the management. Not only salaries, all the expenditures. It keeps adding and adding and adding and adding. Take a hard look at that and find the money. We can, as a group, help you get there. We are never saying, don't maintain the streets. No. In fact, I want you rather do it for $5,000 than $11,000 by the operator. I agree with you on that, okay? Because we can almost do double the roads. I'm not against that. But I am against all this wasteful spending, and some of us, including, you see the 3 or 4 places all the time in the city council, we can say where the money is being spent wrong. We can help you to get what you want, but not through another street. Thank you.
I'll follow what Vish said there, so I won't totally close this if somebody's really holding that hand up trying to touch the ceiling. But since I attended the first meeting that y'all gave at IBC, I felt for awareness, I should bring up some points, and then I'll just bring them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you've covered some of them if you want to say something back, but I would be mentioning these purely because of awareness, so you can educate the people here in case we didn't touch on it, you know, in our Q&A, and that's the reason. Because I think what you've got here is a consensus, and again, I'll speak on one part of it. I believe the streets should be maintained. I believe they should be paved. I believe that as a city of this size and the tax money we pay, we should. However, on the other hand, I feel you should find another funding source within the city, and I believe you heard that here tonight. That I personally do not agree with this, but I do agree with you finding the money somehow. Okay, so I think that the task here is what you said at the beginning. You were given a direction to come out and get public input. Okay? You were also given the task to find a creative way to do this. I think that's why we're responding to you. So let me just go down little things that I remember from the first meeting. In looking for the creative ways, and you've already talked about it, but I will say it just so the others will hear it here. In the spreadsheet, in that pie chart, there's $18 million budget for parks and recreation. Johnny only has about $7 million for public streets and paving. 3 times what he has is in parks. It's time for parks to close some of the doors and give some money to Johnny Orfila sitting right here to do the streets.
For sure.
That's one, okay?
Let me just tell you one thing real briefly. Public Works does not just do construction and paving of streets.
Well,
There's many other things. Just to let you know that there is a lot more that's done with this monies.
But that's okay, but
go
we'll
ahead.
let you do it.
Yes.
All right. The second one is, and we've talked about it before, but I'll just give the true number, $7.5 million. It's what the discretionary fund is that council has. It's the reserve from 2016 because the check has not been signed. So that money is still in reserve. I don't care if they say it's committed for Lazy River or those lights in the Heights area. Is that right? Okay. All right, so there's $7.5 million. Why can't those 8 councilmen give up a little bit to Johnny and let him pave some streets? Okay. I'm just throwing some of these suggestions out, right?
Sure.
Okay. All right, the next one is, We talked about machinery and manpower. We need to help Johnny and Robert find the money within the city budget. He's got machinery, costly machinery invested in. He's using those people that run those machines doing other work that should be operating paving machines and filling potholes right now today. Okay, so we need to help him find that. So I think what you're hearing from us tonight is to try to help you with the creative ways. Now, on the other side of the critique, Robert, the council always talks about McAllen, Texas, not FAR, Texas. Okay, you mentioned earlier, McAllen has no street fee, and McAllen's tax rate is lower than ours. I'm not saying we all need to move to McAllen, but the point of it is the city council loves to compare ourselves to McAllen, and they're beating our socks off. It was no street paving fee and a lower tax rate and an economic development sales tax. Oh, wow. We hope, Robert, that you have taken in what the group has said here tonight. I believe they would be the biggest fighter for you and Johnny at City Council if you can come up with some creative way to make a suggestion to go some way other than this fee. You would have this whole group there behind you fighting for you. I think, is that right, group? Yes. All right. We thank you for being here. Y'all want any closing comments before?
Yeah, just real quick. I think, well, and John may have a couple comments, but you know, we brought up some multiple solutions at a certain point. So, you know, we will continue to do that. We're getting this feedback, and we will come back to the council and provide them with that full list. But I think, in all honesty, I think they're aware of most of it. What we'll do is we'll reinforce a lot of the stuff and communicate, you know, what we're hearing, what we're seeing. But that as well, that we understand the wishes of what we're hearing. But it will ultimately fall, again, with our city council, with our management team, to fulfill those policy decisions. Because these are grander scale type approaches that really will take everyone in this room to go ahead and make those types of changes or comments or commitments from these individuals. We'll, again, convey as much as we can, as loud as we can, but ultimately, again, we'll do what we have to do, but we'll definitely, we won't miss an opportunity to express your concerns and all the comments that were given.
We greatly appreciate you coming and taking time to come and educate this group of leaders, because they represent, you know, many different groups.
Right.
So they'll go out to their groups to disseminate some of this information. We greatly appreciate it. And that packet took a lot of work, a lot of thought and everything. So we greatly appreciate that too. But we need to, you know, maybe re-look at that, look again at that pie chart to get money from there. And that's the way we need to do the streets. We don't want to be business unfriendly.
Right.
Because, you know, you said, well, the drive-throughs, they bring in a lot of cars, and it's like, we think of McDonald's and Wendy's and Taco Palenque, and we don't want to, you know, punish them because they're doing good business.
Right.
We want to attract business. We
Agreed.
don't want to drive them to McAllen.
Well, they said they collect sales taxes, which
Yes.
are very beneficial. So
Yes.
I don't know, Mr. Orfila wanted to say something.
Again, I'd like to thank you all again. I know you all call yourself our Laredo, and it is our Laredo, all of us as a whole. And again, we're just trying to, again, from public works standpoint, take care of what we need to do. And at this time, we just need to come together and find one solution, which was council's directive to get together with many different organizations and take this back to council. And if they choose to go a different route, so be it. If they chose to this way, we'll go with the street maintenance fee, and we will be giving them all of your all's input. And there's still, I don't know how many more meetings we have signed up. I think we got 3 of them today. And we're ready to go to all of them. We have no objections to talking to anybody, and again, thank you all for having us here, and I think you all are a great group and doing a great job.
Well, I wanted to make one thing clear. There's different groups. There's the Avenida San Bernardo.
Great.
There was a group from Central Laredo Municipal Management District.
Great.
There's the Texans for Fiscal Responsibility that some of these people represent. There's the Right to Speak group and our Laredo. So it's
Awesome.
not just,
And the former Moving Laredo Forward.
And the Moving
and the
Laredo
what
Forward.
coalition, what? To lower taxes.
and the Coalition to Lower
Yeah.
Taxes. So we're all represented here.
So if y'all ever need us for any, any other your little meetings or whatever y'all gonna do, you need us to come, sit with you all, we'd be more than glad to also.
And you know where to find us as well, but we'll be at the October 12th LMA meeting, Laredo Manufacturers, and then we'll be doing, I believe, the Chamber of Commerce meeting in October as well, their board meeting.
But you should have some public meetings so the public can come and not.
Town hall.
They are
Town
coming,
hall.
they are
Town
coming.
Time out,
We've
time out.
already signed those up
Town
too.
hall is
So-
the most effective
We've already
way,
doing
or
them.
town halls
Okay.
are
So,
huge.
October
We
18th,
are doing them.
we just finished the flyers and scheduled with the library, so October 18th from 6 to 8 o'clock, you're going to hear a lot about it. But October 18th from 6 to 8 at the main public library is one, and then multi-purpose room. And then October 25th, 1 week after that, we're going to be going to the South Library from 6 to 8 as well. And so those are being scheduled as well so that we can go ahead and attract from both South, North, and Central Laredo.
Thank
So,
you very much.
Gracias. Thank you.
We're not adjourning yet, we're not adjourning yet. We have one announcement from Mr. Luis de la Garza.
That's never.
You know me.
Well, I'm right here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
This way, right here.
Let me come back here.
Stand between Robert and Johnny.
I'm gonna get my wallet. Hold on to my wallet.
No, I'll stand here. I'll let the city take their own credit.
Sure, sure.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Luis de la Garza, and I thank Millie for giving me the opportunity, but I just wanted to make a quick announcement. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'll be announcing that I'm running for state representative